Hang on there, I'm got to pull up something. Hey, BCO. Thank you guys for being here tonight for the start of Kayaking 101. We're going to be talking all things kayaking just all week long. You can at any time drop an email to me, which is Kelly@Bayou City Outdoors, or you can just drop a note on the Facebook group. Whatever you want to do, I'll be checking it all week long, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might want to have. Just so you have just a quick intro or overview of this week, what we'll be doing is tonight I'm just going to do a quick Kayaking 101 intro. Tomorrow night we'll be talking about kayaking safety and safety gear, what you need, good things like that, how to be a safe kayaker. On Wednesday night we are live in person at Austin Canoe and Kayak. So I'll be there, and you can, I'll be demonstrating boats, and at the same time you can ask me any questions that you might have. So then Thursday night we're going over strokes and how to transport your boat, because that's one of those things that I get asked a lot. And then on Friday evening, we'll be talking about where to go. I think we've got some maps for you then, and basically just, whatever you need to get you out there and going. Tonight it's going to be pretty quick, and if you miss this in person, I'll be reposting it and you'll be able to see it live later. So a couple of the questions that I've gotten so far this week. One of them was basically like, why get into another sport? This came from someone who's already a biker. I think she already does some backpacking, and she was just like, gosh, why get into another sport? And I don't know. I mean, I think I'd like to just kind of tell you what kayaking means to me and why I do it. And maybe while I'm at it, I should probably introduce myself. So I'm Kelly Howard, and I do run Bayou City Outdoors. I consider that my job at BCO is just to get people out, having fun, doing new things, and just trying some new stuff and just really finding those things that you really enjoy doing. So as far as, why a new sport? Well, I guess there's two reasons. One reason is like summer in Houston, right? Summer in Houston can be kind of brutal. And being able to get out on the water and enjoy yourself, just like, out on the water, under the shade, it's a cooler sport. It's just lots of fun that way. Another reason is that it is great. It's great exercise. And we'll get into that a little bit more. And it's also just like this super meditative type of fun to me. You can make it whatever you want. For me, I started kayaking kind of, if you downloaded your workbook and looked at it, you might have heard this story. It was really like a complete whim. One of my BCO members had gone to a class, and she's like, oh my God, we've got to do this. We've got to put it on our calendar. And so I was like, okay. And so I showed up, and I'd never been in a kayak before in my life, and showed up, jumped into the class, and realized that these boats that we were going to be in, they were little boats, and I was attached to them. And this was a whitewater class. I didn't even know what whitewater was. I mean, I didn't know whitewater from flat water from a walk in the park. I mean, I knew nothing. And I found it rather stimulating, to say the least, rather stimulating. And I was hooked, because most things I can pick up pretty easy on my own. I mean, I just can pick up, whatever it is I want to do. But the whitewater kayaking was just difficult for me. And so I just stuck with it. And I think that I'm very fortunate, because if I had started out with something super easy, I might not have stayed with it. But because I did start out with something that was more difficult for me to do, then it was a challenge, and I like a good challenge. And so what happened was I just kind of just stayed with it. And from there I learned, I just learned about paddling in Houston, and I learned about paddling all over and going all different places, and just really trying some different types of kayaking, and just loved it. I mean, it was one of those things that I just found to be amazingly fun. So to me, it's adventure, it's exercise, it's magic, it's friends. I mean, I've got great friends that we go paddle with. So that's why I paddle. And that's why I think everybody should take it up and take up another sport. There's also another question that came in, which was like, what if I've never done this before in my life? I mean, what do I do? I mean, is this something that people can pick up easily? Is it difficult? I mean, what do we do with this? And I will say that when you first start, like when you're just learning to kayak, it's easy. I mean, well, it wasn't for me, but I think I'm a special case. But just like getting in a recreational boat and, learning to go straight and taking strokes and things like that, there's a really easy learning curve. So I like to tell people that you can get into it quickly, and then you can spend the rest of your life learning all the nuances. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot of fun to be had. But really, you can just get in there and just get going pretty simply. So I highly encourage anybody who's interested. Spend some time with me this week, because I can tell you a lot of things just so that when you get in a boat, it'll make sense. And we'll also be doing the 101 classes. If you're a BCO member, we'll have 101 classes all summer long. So you'll be able to just jump in a boat and give it a try. So hold on just a sec. I had some dental work done earlier, so I'm completely numb. So if I start drooling, you've got to tell me, okay? Another thing, some other concerns that came up with people. One of them is upper body strength. A lot of times, women will say to me, "Well, I don't have a lot of upper body strength, so I don't think I can paddle." And we'll go over this a little bit more later in the week. But just so you know, kayaking really isn't upper body. It's a lot of core. It's a lot of all over. And you're not really supposed to be using your arms. Arms are for nuance, and your core is what's driving you forward. So I can show you those strokes and what you need to know for that. But just know that this is not something that requires a lot of upper body strength. And a lot of times it requires balance. And women tend to have a little bit better balance nuance than men do in general. I mean, not always. I hate to make just generalities like that, but a lot of times women can be a little bit more balanced in the boat. Another thing, I'm not checking notes, excuse me, hard to transport. I'll show you. We'll do that on Thursday night. We're going over how to transport a boat, and I will hopefully be able to just demonstrate putting the boat on a vehicle and how to use it, or how to transport it. It's just a learning process. And that's really the truth. It's just a learning process. You can pretty much take a boat on any vehicle. If it's a vehicle that you really, really love and you don't want to get any scratches on it, then you might consider something else. But you can definitely take a boat on almost any vehicle. Another question was the expense. Is this a super expensive sport? How do you justify it? And my first boat was $400. I bought it used on Craigslist, and with that came a life vest or a PFD, which was really not usable, and a paddle. So you can get into this for a pretty good, a pretty low price point. If you got your workbook, then go to, I think it's day 3, and I've got a whole bunch of information in there on how to buy used, what to look for when you're buying used. I suggest that people actually buy that first boat used. The reason is that you may not know exactly what it is that you want. And if you go out and you buy that super beautiful, gorgeous $1,000 or $3,000 carbon fiber boat, it may not be the boat for you. And you don't want to do that right away. You want to try a few things first. So, and Wednesday night, if you can join us in person, we'll be at Austin Canoe and Kayak, and we'll be going over boats there. I mean, looking at boats, touching, feeling, getting an idea for what's actually, what you'll be looking for. And I can also show you some things that you want to make sure that you're looking for too if you're buying used. So it doesn't have to be an expensive sport. I will say that probably one of the first things that you want to purchase is your PFD, or your personal flotation device. You want that because you want your own PFD. You can always borrow a boat from a friend. You can always borrow a paddle. But that PFD, you want something that fits you well, fits you in a way that that you just don't even know that it's on. It just feels like part of you. We'll do this on Wednesday night, but I will tell you right now that what kind of paddling you're doing does to some degree determine what kind of PFD you're going to get. So keep that in mind. If you look at the workbook, it gives you a link to an NRS, how to actually test a PFD, put it on, how to decide whether it fits you properly. And if you're there Wednesday evening, I'm happy to help you fit into one too. So that's something that you can do. Another thing that people worry about is water quality. So Houston, our water is it's generally brown, and so you have to check this out. You have to go out and do your own research. But what I have read is that actually our water quality is relatively good in our bayous. It just doesn't look that beautiful. So we have bayous to paddle in, and they're still water, so they generally are a little less, they look a lot brackish. They look a lot browner. We have, and we'll go over this Friday night, all the places to paddle, but the Gulf can be beautiful, especially in the morning when it's flat. We've got some pretty nice water here. Clear Lake can be nice, Conroe, Lake Woodlands. So you don't have to just think about, one particular bayou and go, oh, I don't want to paddle on that kind of water, because there's a lot of places. I mean, there's a lot of water in Houston. Another thing that people ask me about, and I could kick myself for ever mentioning this because I mentioned it one time and people bring it up a lot, and that is alligators. We do have some alligators here. I mean, but they're generally small. They don't want to be around you. They're in certain bodies of water. There's like more in, I don't know, let's say Armand Bayou than they would be in maybe Buffalo Bayou. So it's not something you have to be afraid of. You don't have to worry about them. I mean, they are shy. They don't want to be near you. You just leave them alone and really pretend that no one ever mentioned the word around here for you, because don't let that stop you from going out and trying out kayaking, because there's just so much to be seen here, and it's so beautiful. So don't do that. So a couple of other things that have been asked is, and I'll tell you like very quickly, even if you can't make it, Wednesday night, we'll go over this in person, but if you can't, there's some types of kayaking, determine the type of boat that you're going to purchase. So typically what you see in our area more than anything are what we call recreational boats. They could be a sit on top boat or a sit inside boat, kind of a cockpit. But they're a rec boat. They're something, they are a little bit longer. They have typically a keel, not necessarily a rudder, but a keel. And that keel allows it to go straight when you paddle. And it's, I mean, we're not talking like a sailboat keel. This is like little, inches. And then some of the nicer rec boats, as they get a little bit, as you spend a little bit more money on your boat, you will have a rudder in there. Then another kind of boat, well, let me say this about a rec boat. A lot of people ask me, what kind of boat do I need to take my dog with me? You want to sit on top boat. You want something that the dog will be comfortable on, that the dog will stay on. You could do maybe a really large cockpit boat, or a boat with a large cockpit. If your dog is small, But you want something that it's easy to get that dog back on in case they go in the water. You also, if you're taking your dog, you want to make sure that you've got a life vest for it. We call them PPFDs, which is personal puppy flotation devices. But you definitely want something that, your dog, if they go in the water, you'll be able to retrieve them. Most of them, if not all dog vests, have like a handle on it that you can just pick them up and put them back in, unless your dog's really big. So canoes are also really good for dogs. But I am no good in a canoe, so you don't want to ask me about canoes. So that would be a rec boat. And then your sea kayaks tend to be a little bit longer. It's more like a touring boat, something that you would take longer distances. They're easier to paddle. They've got longer water line, rudder. So they're maneuverable in a large boat sort of way. And then your third type of boat that you'd be looking at would be a whitewater boat. They tend to be shorter, round on the bottom. They don't go in straight lines. I mean, you can make them go in a straight line, but it takes a lot of work. And it's because they don't have a keel. They don't have a rudder. I mean, they're just made to go down rivers with flowing water. So sometimes you'll find a whitewater boat for sale. Actually, let me rephrase that. A lot of times you'll find whitewater boats for sale that are very inexpensive, and it's tempting. Like, it's really tempting. Like, wow, I could get this kayak for $200 and I'll have a kayak. If you are not thinking that you're going to go paddle on whitewater, then you probably don't want to buy a used whitewater boat. They can be super frustrating to people. Like, until you're used to paddling them, they don't go straight. So you're spending most of your time spinning in circles. So it can be really annoying to people. So you don't want to do that. Hey Donna, thanks for joining me. It might just be you and I. I think Susan's on too. So other things that we need to know about are, as far as why to paddle in Houston, you'll find that we have an amazing amount of water here. I mean, just huge amounts of water. So, I mean, literally we're called the Bayou City because there's so many bayous in town. There's the Gulf, there's Clear Lake, there's some of the other places that I mentioned earlier. And we do have some maps for you on Friday and some, details about where to go. But if anybody has questions, just type them in. And Christine, thank you for listening intently. I'm speaking intently too. So normally I'm spoiled and have like Amy or Andrea or somebody handling my technology for me, so I can just show up and act like I know what I'm doing. And they're not here tonight, so so good luck, guys. Any questions? I know Donna, I think she's on the line right now. She's done a lot of paddling with me. And Christine, are you a paddler? Have you done much? And I know that Gail was joining us earlier, and she really was wondering about, what do you do when you're just like a brand new paddler? So everybody starts somewhere. And if you weren't here earlier, I mentioned earlier that it is a super quick learning curve. I mean, it really is. Like, most people, I can put them in a boat, say 3 things about what to do, and then what's going to happen is that you're just going to be able to pick up that initial kayaking super easy. And then there's nuances. I mean, it's a lifetime of nuances after that. But until then, it's a really easy thing to pick up. So a couple of things here. So the Hobie Mirage, is that the paddle boat? Because I'm not totally familiar with those. But congratulations on sneaking up on wildlife. I love that. And something that I haven't usually mentioned is artist boat. So for those of you who are aware of this, they're down in Galveston, and they do, if I'm correct, they do paddling and painting. So that's a whole different take on the idea of the kayaking. But yeah, Christine, I have never used the paddle boats, so I only know the pedal boats. I know the paddle boats, but I don't know anything about the pedal boats. And I'm not sure, but they might have them at Austin Canoe and Kayak. So join us Wednesday night and we'll take a look at one together. I've looked at 2 or 3 of those types of boats lately in the paddling magazines, and they're fascinating. I mean, I guess it's a completely different workout, and if you're a photographer, I can see why you would want to do it. Yeah. So other questions. I'm talking pretty quick this evening, but this intro is just kind of a quick step into what we're up to this week. If you missed this earlier, the way the week's going to go is I'm just introducing what we're up to tonight. Tomorrow night we're going to talk about safety. On Wednesday night we'll be live at Austin Canoe and Kayak, and we're going to talk about gear. On Thursday night I'm going to be talking about strokes. All the different maneuvering and how to transport your boat. Most likely we'll be outside with my boat and tie it up on top of the car, and you can get a look at that. And then on Friday night we're talking about where to go. So that's the way this week is going to go. As far as tonight goes, I'd say let's just talk for a second about Donna's asking what are some of the good places in the Houston area to paddle. So Donna, there are, and I'll definitely go over this on Friday with maps and illustrations, but just so you know, some of the places that I like to go. Oyster Creek down in Sugar Land, it's very pretty down there, and it's relatively shady in the middle of the summer. Lake Woodlands, we've done actually dragon boating up there and a lot of paddling up there. Some of the bayous, like I do this every year. I'll do the Boats, Bats, and Brew, which is we paddle up Buffalo Bayou, and Buffalo Bayou is pretty interesting, really. Like when you're looking at it, you might be thinking, I'm not sure I really want to get in there. But once you get in there and you're down at water level and you're looking up, there's like this amazing amount of wildlife. I mean, it just blows you away, like the trees and the birds and the bats and everything going on down there. It's really very pretty, actually. And then you can just paddle right through downtown, which is, I don't know, it's different. It's not the middle of nature, but it's pretty stunning, actually. So as far as like the types of paddling that you might do, the recreational paddling that I mentioned earlier, that's what I'm talking about right now. So you're paddling Buffalo Bayou, you're paddling Armand Bayou, maybe Clear Lake, Lake Conroe, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a flatboat, it's either a sit on top or a sit inside boat, and you're just it's just for fun. I mean, you're just out there enjoying it. Lake Sheldon, which is somewhere we go quite frequently, is just like filled with cypress and lily pads, and it's really pretty magical, actually. So that's kind of a recreational boat. It's just a good all-around boat, something that you'd be able to take a lot of places. It's not a specialty like your Hobie, but it's just kind of an all-around boat. Then there would be a sea kayak or a touring kayak, which is going to be a longer boat. It's going to be thinner and more narrow. It's going to have a longer water line so you can paddle it further with ease. You can also paddle it in the waves. I mean, we've taken them out to Galveston before and paddled them in. They're fun. I mean, they're a lot of fun to paddle in. You want to make sure that you're pointing in instead of getting broadside to the wave, but it's a lot of fun. And if you get knocked over, you just come out of your boat. I mean, we're in Galveston. You can stand up and walk in. And then the whitewater boats, which are, so we don't have whitewater in Houston, obviously. The closest place is San Marcos, and it's about a 2.5 hour drive, I think. And there's some small places to practice your paddling there. So if you want to get into whitewater, once you get to paddling San Marcos and do it more frequently, then what's going to happen is that you'll want to actually start traveling. If you're interested, we have a couple of trips this summer. One of them is in June and one of them is in July. So that's kind of like, if you really want to get me talking about paddling, I mean, that's where my mind's going to go, because I really do enjoy that, because it's just fun. I mean, it's a different kind of paddling, but the recreational paddling that you can do around here and the sea kayaking around here is beautiful. So any other questions? And if not, I mean, excuse me for looking at my notes again. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Otherwise, let's see. Yeah, sorry. I'm using my phone for this, and so my phone's really small, so I can't see where to flip with it. So if there's no other questions, then what I'll do is I'm going to plan on seeing y'all tomorrow evening. We're going to talk about safety. And with safety, what I want to talk about is fitting your PFD properly. So, how it actually needs to fit on you, how you know that it's the right PFD for what you're doing. And I always encourage people that you buy your PFD before anything else. You can borrow a boat, you can borrow a paddle, but your safety is really, really the most important thing. So you definitely want that PFD. And so we'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll also talk about just hand signals, whistle signals, and things that you should carry in your bag. Like, I carry a bag on the river. It's just a small bag with a few things in it, but we'll go over that tomorrow evening too, about just, what you need in your bag. And then if there's no other questions, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign off, let you guys get on with your evening, and then I'll talk to you tomorrow. And if you need anything, leave messages below and I will be checking them. So thank you so much for being here, and I will talk to you tomorrow. See you.